Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, founder of a revolutionary medical sales training and mentorship program called the Medical Sales Career Builder, and I'm also host of the Medical Sales Podcast. In this podcast, I interview top medical sales reps and leading medical sales executives across the entire world. It doesn't matter what medical sales industry, from medical device to pharmaceutical to genetic testing and diagnostic lab, you name it, you will learn how to either break into the industry, be a top 10% performer within your role, or climb the corporate ladder. Welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. And remember, I am a medical sales expert sharing my own opinion about this amazing industry and how it can change your life. Hello and welcome to the Medical Sales Podcast. I'm your host, Samuel, and today we have with us another special guest, and he goes by the name of Josh Reynolds. Who is Josh Reynolds? Well, Josh is actually someone in medical sales that started as an individual contributor and climbed his way all the way into the startup world with OrthoFundamentals with his own sales team. But I'm not going to spoil it by telling you anymore. You got to listen to the episode. This is one of those episodes that you want to listen to because everybody starts off, most people start off in the individual contributor role when they join a commercial sales force for any kind of medical technology company. But to leave that role and kind of ascend into a space where you get to run your own thing, it's strategic. It means you really stepped into each position you ever had and gave it your all. It requires networking. There's so many elements, and we address all of them in this episode. So this is an episode you absolutely want to listen to. So many of you that are listening are either in medical sales or want to be in medical sales. You got to listen to this episode. As always, we do our best to bring you guests that are doing things differently in the medical sales space. So I really do hope you enjoy this interview. Hey, Josh, how are we doing today?
Good, Sam. How are you?
I am fantastic. No complaints. So why don't you tell the audience who you are and what you do?
Sure. My name is Josh Reynolds. I'm the Area Vice President of Sales in the Southeast for OrthoFundamentals. We are an SI joint fusion company. Certainly a startup, right? We're in our second year and change in sales. So I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me on.
So I'm going to say it right off the bat. A lot of people listening right now might not quite understand anything you just said. They just know that you're a guy that has a company that they could possibly work at in medical sales. Could you break down your field and what that means to our audience?
Sure. Yeah. So for us, I mean, our moniker is providing innovative, simple solutions for the outpatient setting, right? So everything we didn't necessarily invent SI joint fusion. We're just trying to make it easier, right? Have a quality product, with quality instrumentation, and make it as easy on the physician, the patient, and the rep. Right. So currently we have multiple options in the SI joint fusion space, different approach options. Again, we are not doctors, but we want to be able to give doctors, these different solutions, regardless of their theories or their approaches.
So what type of, let's step into the day in the life of a representative that works at OrthoFundamentals. What does it look like when they go to work? What are they going to do? What's the case coverage like? Talk to us a little bit about that insight.
Sure. So the day-to-day, I mean, there's plenty to do, right? With follow-ups, with approaching new physicians, setting up, lunches, dinners, meetings. And then when it comes down to case coverage, this is one of our selling points for the reps that we partner with actually is, traditionally with medical sales, you have, for a procedure, you have these trays and then you have implants, all of which need to get to that facility somehow, right? So
Right.
With reps, they're, okay, I've got a case, great. You have to take the tray, order the tray probably. In most cases, maybe you don't have it on hand. Get the tray, take it to the facility where they wash, they sterilize the tray. Then you go back the second time and you're actually covering the case, right? And then when that's cleaned and, disinfected, you go back a third time, right? So that's one of our sticking points, especially with very busy representatives that we work with, is, we can send the, instrumentation right to them or right to the facility. And that's something they can open up day of, right? There's not multiple trips involved. We're trying to, make it more economical for everyone involved, right? Again, the physician, patient, and the representative. So.
Sure. So, would you guys call yourselves distributors?
No, because we make our own product. Everything we do is in-house. So that goes for the instrumentation, the implants, everything is designed and made in-house. But we do partner with distributors currently that have a book of business. For instance, maybe they carry something else in the spine world, and either they're unhappy with their current SI joint fusion product, or they're that's something that their physicians have been asking them for.
Sure.
And so we would go in and meet with those distributors, with that team, or with that rep and that physician customer.
Got it. And would you say that you guys have your own sales force, or do you depend mostly on distributors you partner with to get the products out?
Yeah, currently we are partnering with distributors. We count on them, right? So
Sure.
because we're very, very early on in our journey. So this is me personally. This is my third startup. So that's kind of how you begin in the beginning, and then slowly but surely, as you begin to commercialize and grow, you do need that direct representative. Just different reasons: quality control, obviously, increase in revenue, increase in volume. So you need more boots on the ground.
Now, if what I love about your history is you started as an individual contributor, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you started like so many of us, and then you rose to the ranks to conduct a life you wanted to lead with your own company.
Mm-hmm.
But when you think back to when you started, could you say that now in 2024, a green person, meaning someone that's never been in medical sales, could establish an LLC and reach out to you and want to be a distributor, and reach out to enough institutions like yourself and get a suite of products being green, or would you say that's no, it has to be a seasoned rep?
Well, I mean, I think there's different variations of seasoned, right? And depending on which specialty, how complex the procedure is, I would say for someone just starting out, I would look to, either getting a position like an associate role or a clinical role with a bigger company, like say a Stryker or a Medtronic or Smith Nephew, something like that, that has, a few things. Number one, it's going to teach you anatomy. It's going to teach you, OR protocols. It's going to teach you, the individual surgical technique, which is what it all comes back to. That's kind of the core knowledge of a representative, is to know what they are selling and be able to, the moment a physician asks a question, be able to answer that question accurately and efficiently, right? So I would suggest anyone starting out that maybe look towards that, pathway, probably with a bigger company. But however, there are more and more, and at least what we're seeing now, is there are a lot of distributorship groups that have multiple reps that work for them that are starting to hire more, green
Right.
representatives that do not have experience, and they're training them themselves, or going to someone like you is like, hey, like what representatives do you have? What kind of training have they had?
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of go-getters at a very young age now. So
Yeah, it's a phenomenon we're seeing too, where kids as young as 21, 22, with the ambition to have their own LLCs and partner with multiple companies, like they have an understanding on
sure.
on how to do it going into it, and it's impressed me, because you remember, what, less than 5 years ago, this was still like the undercover industry, right? You now people have game plans coming out of college for medical sales, where 5 years ago I didn't think it was like that.
Right.
So let's go back, because again, I love the fact that you were an individual contributor. That's where you started, and you did medical sales and you did pharmaceutical sales, it looks like. I want to understand that clearly. Take us back to college. What were you thinking to do? What were you studying, and what happened?
Sure. So I wanted to play professional baseball.
Okay.
I
You played school?
I did.
Oh, nice.
I did.
Now that I didn't catch.
That's not on the profile, right? It's way down there somewhere deep, right?
What position?
I was a pitcher.
Very cool. Okay, so now you really got to get in. Go ahead and give us the story.
Sure. So I went to a very good junior college program. I was good out of high school. I went to a smaller school just because I want to get playing time immediately. Whereas some of my teammates in high school, they were cool with going to sit on the bench for a few years at a bigger university. And the rules were a little bit different back then as well, right? We don't have to get into NIL and all this, all the stuff that's, you can do now as far as transferring, but there was only certain ways you could transfer and all that, right? So I then went to a Division II school, Southern Arkansas, is where I ended up graduating actually. And both of my roommates got drafted and I did not. So I was like, like I need to maybe need to look for a big boy job now, since this is probably not going to work out, right? But when I was playing college baseball in the summertime, you go to play collegiate baseball leagues. So I went to one out in Colorado, and it just so happened that my host family, because they put you with, families that bring you in for the summer and they kind of take care of you and support you. He was a medical sales rep.
Wow.
Yeah. Former athlete himself. So that's kind of where it kind of opened. I was like, all right, well, this is pretty cool if, the baseball, this is a nice backup plan, right? And then as I researched more and more, I saw that a lot of former athletes are in this space. And now that I'm in, it's not every single person, but there's a lot of people. I would say 70, 80% of us out here are former athletes. So because it's competitive, right? That's one of the key things. It is very competitive industry.
Yeah, the short and sweet of it attracts that type of person, and as you've seen and everyone else sees, that type of person makes a really good fit because of the requirement to perform at all times. Okay, so then you get your eyes opened by the host family's medical sales rep. You're now saying, okay, I want this. So it looks like you started with Smith Nephew. What happened next?
Yeah, so I was there for 2 years. Irreplaceable experience as far as, again, being green and not knowing. They had a great training program. They brought you in to do total joints, let you out in the field, under supervision for a long time until they were comfortable, until my team was comfortable, senior reps, comfortable with me covering the cases on my own. And then they brought you back again for more in-depth, like intermediate training. So with, revisions, hinges, a lot of complex procedures. So irreplaceable training in the OR absolutely set up my life in medical sales for sure from that moment. The pharmaceutical thing is interesting because typically you see pharmaceutical reps start in pharma and they go over the device. I kind of do everything backwards. That's just, it's always been that way for me.
So what happened? I mean, tell us.
No, so I was approached by a pharmaceutical company and, I was kind of, low man on the totem pole, if you will, because I was cutting my teeth with Smith Nephew. And I had a friend that was in pharmaceuticals and he was like, what have you heard? What does this look like? And I'm like, well, my day-to-day is covering cases. When I get time, with the physician at the scrub sink, then I certainly, talk to them, or maybe a competitive physician about a revision product or a case they have coming up. But my sales time is very limited because we are so busy and we're covering so many cases. And he was like, well, I sell every single day. And I'm like, okay. I'm like, that's cool. So he kind of walked me through a day in the life with him. And look, with pharma, they don't get a bad rap, but there's this kind of connotation that, they don't work as hard or they don't, have it as bad. And I'm like, my friend that was in pharmaceutical, right. He's President's Club. I'm like, I don't know. But
busy.
Busy. And it was, I thought it was interesting because the sales training I learned there, it got way more clinical, a little more chemistry involved.
Right.
A different type of sale altogether. And it was,
white paper heavy.
Yeah, absolutely. So talking about clinical studies and things like that, the conversations that would only help me, I knew down the road. So, look, they had all the spoofs too. Company car.
But I want to hear what was going on at Smith Nephew that made you say, I want to entertain this and see if I like it.
Sure. Nothing negative. It's just, I didn't know if I wanted to be in that because the orthopedic rep, the traditional orthopedic rep, they're there for a long time. Mm-hmm. Those guys and girls typically don't leave. They're doing that forever. And it's like, well, I'm not sure. I think this is something I can always come back to with the skills stuff.
Sure.
But, for me, I wanted to have something with a little bit more sales.
Sure.
Because what happens a lot of times in orthopedics is, and not always, but different institutions train physicians on, whether it's Stryker, Medtronic, like they've got something in-house. So when they come out of school, they want to use that.
Right.
So there was a study done.
Reality of it.
I should have cited this, but there was a study done that looked at how many times an orthopedic surgeon actually changes companies, just in like total joints. Mm-hmm. It was 1.5 times per their entire career. So in 30 years,
really,
they're going to change 1.5 times. And it's like, that's not that often. And if, they're not using their stuff out of school, it's difficult, right? So,
sure.
but yeah, I mean, just for me, that was a personal decision. I wanted to try something new, and I knew that, you know, I was warned that I was going to get to a ceiling pretty quick in pharmaceuticals. So,
Okay, so talk to us about that. So you went into pharma. I mean,
mhm,
because you know what's so cool about your experience is you literally went from med device to pharma back to med device. So
right.
you had a very intense reality of what each thing actually is.
Oh yeah.
So when you got into pharma, you know, if you can take us to the moment where you said, you know what, this is great and all, but I think I'm going to go back to medical device. Like, what was going on? What happened? Give us the story.
Sure. So it was a few things actually. So the first thing was, you know, the layoffs. I don't know if you ever heard of that, but like in pharmaceutical companies, it's pretty common where they
That
have,
never happens.
right, what's that?
I'm
Yeah,
joking.
right. No,
Okay.
no, that's just something, that was something that I'd heard of, but, you know, when you have performing representatives being laid off
It's
uh,
intense.
in the masses, it's a little intimidating, right? I mean, you know, and these are friends of mine that, quite frankly, were doing better than I was.
Right. Right.
So, and with more tenure. So I never really understood that. That made me a little uncomfortable, you know, job security. Not that to say this, it doesn't happen in medical device, but it just seems like that was something pretty common in pharmaceuticals. But the actual product that I was selling was very interesting. It was a company called Movantic. So it was,
Mhm.
that was the drug. The company was Daiichi Sankyo. It's
Right.
a Japanese company. We co-promoted that product with AstraZeneca. So I was working, if you can imagine, I was working with another rep from AstraZeneca. We were partnering together and selling this product. It was it was great. It was a great product. We had a Super Bowl commercial. I mean, life was good, right? I
Sure.
mean, it's
Okay.
not that difficult in that regard, right? Because we had a
Sure.
great product and
Yeah.
coverage. Um, but as time went on, so we're selling into pain management offices, right? So this is all again all new to me, and that was the time of the opioid epidemic.
What? So you were
I was
selling during the opioid epidemic.
I was there for that. So a
Oh,
lot of people. So I did not sell an opioid. Not that I'm, you know, whether I, you know, believe in that stuff or don't. I
sure.
knew all the opioid reps though, and
Yeah.
what you see on Netflix and all that's
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
pretty accurate. But you know, what's interesting, and I had that conversation all the time. Like, no, like this product does not cross the blood-brain barrier. It's, you know, not an opioid. This is just to use in conjunction with that, you know, product. But what I was seeing in pain management is a lot of these guys were shifting their focus from prescribing meds and doing more med management to more interventions. Because at that time, they were doing injections, they were doing some RFAs, they were doing spinal cord stimulation, but there was started to be an uptick in interventions. Like, okay, we can't write as many opioids anymore. What else can we do for these patients to get them off opioids or at least titrate them down from using, right? So while I'm in pain management and this is all going on in the background, I run into the reps that are doing neuromodulation, right? And at the time it was St. Jude. It was right when Abbott actually bought St. Jude Medical. And I was
Okay.
like I could definitely see myself getting back into device and doing this because I love the call points,
Wow.
right?
That's so cool. What a natural progression you had.
Right.
Um, wow. So then you left pharma. You joined St. Jude Neuromodulation,
Hmm.
and you know, I guess I want to hear. You thought it was going to be one way. You thought it's definitely up your alley. When you get there, what was the reality for you?
We were busy. It was crazy. I mean,
Busy when you were an ortho rep.
oh my gosh. We were busy. We had a team of 7 of us, and the geography, for those that know, it was about kind of central Florida up the coast all the way to Naples. So, I mean, round trip, I mean, 4 hours probably. 7 different, like I said, 7 different reps. I mean, we were cooking, always busy. It's a very, very involved, a lot of things in pain management are very involved. And what I mean
Sure.
by that is with the patients, with the physicians, and also the staff, right, and
Sure.
helping them out. So it is a very involved role with the practice. You are helping them build their practice for sure.
Mhm.
So it was wild.
So then St. Jude, and then you're busy.
Hmm.
What happens next?
So that was I kind of took a step back in that role because I came back as an associate again into medical device, and then one of my competitors that was growing rapidly asked me to
Stole you.
right, pretty much, pretty much. asked me to start up a new territory and be a territory manager. So it's like, that was kind of the aha moment.
Mm-hmm.
Territory manager, having my own territory to build up, to hire clinical support and build my own team. So finally, that was on the table. So
That's exciting.
Mm-hmm.
So you're a territory manager now. You're and were you still in the neuromodulation space, or you went to a different vertical?
It was neuromodulation. So the company's called Nevro.
Okay. Yep. And okay. And you build this team, and then you guys do your thing. And then how did you get to Spinal Simplicity?
So everything was great at Nevro. It's a great company, great technology,
Sure.
Great leadership, fantastic leadership. It was the pandemic that ultimately was the end of that. Everything's cooking, starting to build a team, hiring clinical reps, and then the pandemic. It's very interesting. Depending on who you talk to and depending on which specialty they were in, what happened. It either really, really helped some reps or it really, really hurt some reps. And unfortunately, I was one of the few that it didn't really work out for. So, and, reasoning for that's a lot of internal stuff that happened during that time. But ultimately, yeah, it's just very fortuitous of a guy. Speaking of networking, it was a guy that I'd met 3 or 4 years prior, was in one of my offices. Actually my number one account at the time. He was in there showing him this little, what I would have called a widget back then, with Spinal Simplicity. And I was like, what's that? And he was like, hey, do you have time? Let's go across the street. We'll have lunch.
Yeah.
And he showed me this whole new world of startup.
Wow.
So it was, he was like, listen, I have an opening. I think you'd be the right guy. Fortunately, I had relocated. So now I had quite a few contacts throughout the state of Florida. So he was like, this is going to be new. This is going to be difficult. This is a new procedure. We're really like grassroots. We needed someone to start Florida. So I took the leap.
Okay, but no, Josh, I'm not letting you get off that easy, man. You said I took the no. you need to take us into, first of all, you see this new technology, you're impressed, you're intrigued by the startup, but you still had this job that you had to do. Mm-hmm. What was it? Was it, oh my gosh, I'm quitting today? Or did you have to sit on it for a month or two? I mean, talk to us a little bit about the actual transition.
Sure. No, I definitely had to sit on it. I mean, look, I talked to my parents, talked to some of my counterparts, a lot of mentors that I have in the space. I talked to them numerous, actually. And, ultimately it was a decision what, do you want to stay with, a bigger company, maybe not get lost in the numbers, make a good living, but,
right.
Never, are you okay with not knowing how this or where this is going to lead? Right. And, for me, I was not okay with that. So it's very interesting. It's very visible whenever you go to a startup company. There's minimal representation. It is, it's very, very, very visual.
Very. I hope you're enjoying today's episode. And I want to let you know our programs cover the entire career of a medical sales professional. From getting into the medical sales industry, to training on how to be a top performer in the medical sales industry, to masterfully navigating your career to executive level leadership. These programs are personalized and customized for your specific career and background, and trained by over 50 experts, including surgeons. Our results speak for ourselves, and we're landing positions for our candidates in less than 120 days in top medical technology companies like Stryker, Medtronic, Merck, Abbott, you name it. Would you run an Ironman race without training and a strategy? You wouldn't. So why are you trying to do the same with the medical sales position? You need training, you need a strategy, and you need to visit evolveyoursuccess.com, fill out the application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and let's get you into the position that you've always dreamed of. So, when we first started today, you said your third startup. Mm-hmm. And now we're at the time in your career where you hit your first startup. Mm-hmm. Take us through the startup journey. What happened with this one, the second one, and of course, the one you're in now?
Sure. So from there, the second one that I joined was a company called Monteris. So it was neurosurgery, which again, very challenging, whole new landscape.
Wait. What happened with Spinal Simplicity?
So nothing bad. It's just, you get to a point of critical mass to where, you have to determine like, what's the next best step in my career? Have I taken them far enough to where I can, and, leave something better than I found it. Right.
Okay.
And,
So were
for
you
me,
looking, so I guess what I'm trying to get into is to go from an individual contributor to someone who built his own team to
Mhm.
now in the startup world. I'm sure you had paradigm shifts galore. I mean, gosh, I can only imagine. When you're finally in that startup space, what's the attitude? I started this one, we made good money, I'm looking for another one, or is it I started this one, I'm trying to make this one work, and another one came along? How did you go from the transition from spinal to Monteris?
Sure. No, things were good. I mean, it's Final Simplicity. I'd start to build a team, right? Um, the adoption was getting better. In the beginning, the first 6 months was not good. I should back up
Really
and
was.
probably
Yeah.
that. It was not. It was a lot of doors slammed in my face. It was like, that's never going to work. For XYZ reason. Um, it was very humbling to say the least.
Sure.
Not something I was used to.
Sure.
But you get to a point in your career where it's like, okay, I've built out a team. Where's the growth, and where are those factors going to come in? We got to a place to where, not to go down the rabbit hole big time, but you know, in order to play with the big dogs and
Mhm.
your competitors, you have to not only have a good product, but you also have to have access.
Okay.
And that was something, and it still is with all startups. Access is a big hurdle that you have to get over. And by
Yeah.
access, I mean into some of these big conglomerates like the big hospital
Yeah.
systems.
Yeah.
That takes years.
Yeah.
Right? So even for established companies, it's not like, hey, we have this new thing. Here's our FDA clearance. Like, we're good to go, right? It's not that. It's not that simple. You have to go in front of a VAC committee, right? Value analysis committee, and they have to sit down and basically all agree that this is, something safe, something efficient,
Mhm.
uh, it's good economically for the facility. So, um, but yeah, when Monteris actually recruited me, they had, again, in neurosurgery, they had a product that would essentially ablate a tumor. So the, let's say, gold standard, but it is for different types of tumor, whether that be oncology or if that's an epileptic tumor, they go down and they resect it. So it's just like it sounds. They open up your skull, and if they can access it, they will cut that out and resect it. Obviously, you can imagine, what happens after that resection, right? And depending on where it is in the brain, that's something that, if you can minimize that access, you would want to do that, right? So
Yeah.
what they had was essentially a little probe that they would make a much smaller hole, but like a little probe. It would go in and access that tumor, and it would ablate it, so burn it and damage that tissue, and then come right back out.
Wow.
Fantastic data.
Wow.
The data was off the charts, and still is. I still see them post.
Sure, I can imagine. Yeah.
Oh my gosh, they still post their data analysis for in their studies for those different modalities, and it really is impressive. And I think they are getting a strong foothold. But yeah, it was very, very interesting technology.
So it sounds like when you got your first taste of startup life, you started to see, you didn't know what it means to be a successful startup or how to be a successful startup. But it sounds like you started to figure out what that needs to look like.
Mhm.
And the right opportunity came with Monteris that you said, wait a minute, this one has legs. Now that I have a little bit of understanding on what needs to happen here, this
Sure.
opportunity has legs. Did that happen?
Yeah, no, for sure. It did. It got to a place. For me personally, there's some very sick people.
Sure.
Let's put it that way. So
Okay.
you have to have a big old heart and
Yep.
be able to handle that. And regardless of compensation or anything else, it takes a special kind of rep, and hats off
Stay
to
in there.
the
Yep.
reps that do that. But for me, it's not something I could do. You can talk to my wife about it. She saw that change in me. It wasn't for me. I like to
Get
help
it.
people,
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. I get it.
and be a part of that. But for me, it's just, I told my manager, like, look, like, I'm not going to leave you hanging, but you should look for my replacement because I need to do something else. I
Wow.
can't.
Wow. And that was, and so, okay, so then what happened next?
Sure. So I was like, you know what? I've done this startup thing a couple times now. And
I know a little bit. I know a little bit.
you think you do, right? So
Yeah,
whenever you
yeah.
go through something like that. So I was like, you know what? I've got all these contacts. I miss my pain management and spine, you know, customers. And that's a business that I think I can excel in. People have started less, you know, as far as starting a distributorship with less. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to take a stab at it and start my own company. So the next question is, okay, that's great. So what are you going to sell? Right. So then you have that phase of research where you're going out. So I would talk to my physician customers, former customers, current ones, like, hey, like what's out there? What's hot? What do I need to have in my bag? Right. And you don't want to overstretch yourself and have everything, but you want to have, you know, 3 to 4 really good products. So one of those products I had was a kyphoplasty product. So essentially that is when you have a vertebral fracture, you're basically going in there and filling that fracture with cement.
Sure.
Right. So, and it's very for the patients, that's a very painful thing when they have that kind of fracture. Mm-hmm. And it's incredible, you know, if done appropriately and that cement fills up that crack and you get a good fill, how much better they feel pretty instantaneously. Like not immediately, but it's, I mean, the next day, maybe the next, it's really incredible to see. And this is something now physicians are doing in their office under light sedation.
Yeah.
So really, really incredible, fantastic procedure. It's been around for a long time.
Sure.
But, you know, more recently, last few years, it's done in the office. So, so I had that product, and then I also had OrthoFundamentals as a SI joint fusion. So, anyways, lo and behold, I was with, I you know, have these 2 products, and I'm going along, you know, selling these to my customers. And OrthoFundamentals got to a stage of growth where they needed someone to lead their sales force in the Southeast. So they asked me if I would do that. And I'm like, I just got out of jail. You're trying to put me, you know, I was, you know, I just got out. Right. So
thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, no, I was like, look, it was humbling. I was like, thank you. But I think, you know, I like what I'm doing. And I said, I talked to my wife and I was like, look, like, and I go back to the startups and I look, okay, there's a beginning, there's a middle, there's an exit for a successful startup company. The first 2 companies that I work for, they're still in the fight. There hasn't been an exit yet. But this company that I work for now, the CEO, this was his second project. So he had already developed a product, took it to market, actually didn't even get to commercialize it because Arthrex came in and said, that's mine.
Wow.
You're done. Here's a check, and then roll on.
And he went to the Bahamas. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. No, I mean, no, the guy's crazy. He worked for Arthrex for a year and then came back and started another company because he loves it.
Okay.
But you see someone like that and someone, the proof is in the pudding, like they've actually done something.
Yeah, it just gave you all the confidence you needed to go out there and say, I can at least try this. Let's go.
Absolutely. And they showed me, you know, what they have and, you know, some of the things that are coming down the pipeline that you'll see this year.
Yeah. Okay.
You'll see some stuff. So, but, you know, the whole portfolio and everything that they do, it's incredible. It's incredible. It's a great company to be a part of. The guys that are at the top are excellent. Management's great. So, that's where I am now.
And so you are Vice Medical, right? And OrthoFundamentals is one of your partners, or do I not have that right?
No. I know it's a lot this is a very long road to where we are now. It's okay. So Vice Medical was my company and I carried OrthoFundamentals. Now I work exclusively for
OrthoFundamentals. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
So okay. I'm the manager of the Southeast for the company.
Okay. Wow, man, full circle for you. So, I mean, gosh, you know, so how do you feel? I mean, do you see yourself, OrthoFundamentals is obviously a great company, and that's why you made the decision. But sure. Do you see yourself stepping into startup land in the future? Is it behind you now? And your focus is, I'm going to be W-2 for life. I mean, share what you can, but tell us a little bit.
Sure. So I think it's all about, and because I've had this conversation, I'm glad you brought that up. I've had this conversation with some of my counterparts. You see your guys that you start with, right? And you look at either side, and it's like, where are they now? And it's like some guys, hey, they're still a rep. They're working for that big company. They're happy. They're making money. They go all their kids' soccer games. That's what they want to do. Great. Good for you, man or lady. I have another friend that is in a corporate structure where he has moved up. Now he's a regional manager, right, for a big company. And, same thing. I mean, he sits behind a computer like this all day long, does 9 or 10 phone calls or Zoom meetings a day. That would drive me nuts. But he's happy, right? And he's doing well for himself. And again, spending time with his family. I think it's all about what you want to do. And for me, it is about closing that proximity from being a rep to being to the top, to where, I see where these implants are made. I know how we package these implants. I know the process that it takes to get things FDA clear. And the steps that you have to tell. Like, these are the things that interest me the most. It's like startups one thing, but for me, I want to be involved in like a part of that whole process from start to finish, right? I mean, it's pretty cool whenever all the NDAs are signed and you bring in physicians and you're like, what do you think about this?
Right. You love
They're
that.
looking at it for the first time and they're like, where did this come from? Who made it? And that guy is sitting at the table. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Right.
So you get that by growing where you are, or you get that by potentially dabbling back in startup?
Yeah, so I get that where I am. And we are startup. This is a startup company, right? So this is, like I said, pretty much our full year in sales.
Okay, so it's almost like you leveraged all your experience into a further along startup that has legs.
Absolutely. It's a matter of clinical knowledge. It's a matter of seeing, what works and what doesn't at all different stage companies in all different roles. And then you kind of know what to look for.
Right.
Who's driving the bus, what's in the bus, and where are we landing? Right.
I love it. Now, go back to your early stages when you first became an individual contributor. Would you say that the bug to want to be in a startup capacity was always there? Or would you say that it absolutely developed as you just went through your career?
I would say it might have always been there in the back of my mind, but for me, like, you don't know what you don't know, right? I mean, I thought I knew what the day-to-day was, and I reached out to mentors that I have, like, okay, what am I really in for here? And it's, something I always knew that there would be something more after, but, I need to cut my teeth first. I need to get respect, get some knowledge, in the space. So I think it was probably always there.
That is fantastic, Josh. So, you've been hard charging in your career, and you're where you are today, and you've mentioned your wife a couple times. So I know you have a wife. Do you have children?
She is 27 weeks pregnant.
Wow! Congratulations! Wow, I wasn't expecting that one.
Thank you.
So talk to us. I mean,
Sure.
What has the one question I love to ask is, what sustains you? You went from a med sales, associate sales rep to Mr. running teams with startups and having equity in things that are going to be huge. What drove you? Is this something that was just always natural to you? Is it a religious thing? Is it because of your wife? Is it something else? Talk to us a little bit about what drives Josh.
Sure. For me, I've always been, entrepreneurial. It's something that you can, or, I heard a term recently, and I've heard it before, and I've heard it again more recently, is that intrapreneur. And I think that, which is awesome.
Define entrepreneur.
Right. So essentially an entrepreneur without being the guy that's putting it all on the line, like the founder or whoever developed or created something, you can still be an intrapreneur and find ways to, get to where you want to go, make a good living, and also be a part of that innovation without you actually being the actual, creator or the founder of the company or the product. So that's, and like I said, back to that, if you can close that proximity, then, I think that's something you can achieve. And I think that is, where I reside. I don't think I'm going to be building my own devices, but who knows?
Right.
Who knows, right? Our founder is Harvard Business School biomedical degrees. I mean, just a whiz. So, I don't know if I'll ever have that type of knowledge. But certainly working alongside those people is it's pretty incredible to see.
Let's explore that for a moment.
Mm-hmm.
Considering all the experience you've had and being able to work alongside people that have pedigrees like you just mentioned, or that did not have pedigrees you just mentioned and still were in the room.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that if the ambition is there and desire is there, most people that are just competent can create the startup? Or do you believe that you have to have that specialized experience? I'm sorry, specialized education, that's what I should say.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think if you're on that end, if you're the one that's actually developing the product and creating and having conversations with the FDA and clearances and, making sure that you're falling within CPT coding guidelines and all these things, AMA guidelines, you have to have a specific experience, I would say, and have those, because relationships come with that too. I mean, those same circles, one guy starts a company, the other one goes and works for the FDA and they're alumni. You know what I'm saying? So there's that as well. But if you want to be successful in this business, you don't have to have an MBA. You don't have to have any of these things. I will say one of the best reps, he's better than me, and I'm not going to say his name on here and give him any kind of clout, but he knows who he is if he does listen to this. He's from Texas, and this guy was literally a scrub tech. I think he's got an associate's degree. I'm not 100% sure. Not that I hold a lot of weight with that type of stuff. I don't think you need that formal education to be successful in this business. But he was a scrub tech, and he has chewed his way through the ranks, and now he is leading sales force of the central United States.
I mean, that says it all right there. And and I asked that question because I agree that I've talked to so many CEOs that you just had no idea. I mean, immigrants, barely got a college education, college dropouts that are just running entire organizations right now in the medical sales space. So I love that you gave us that perspective, because I agree with you. You don't have to have any formal education. Now, of course, it helps, but if you know how to develop a relationship with the people that do, then you can have that same kind of company. So that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Okay, so Josh, is there anything you'd like to share with the audience? Anything.
Yeah, I would say just advice to aspiring medical reps. I would say networking is number one above all.
Of course.
Right?
Of course.
LinkedIn was in its infancy stage, kind of when I was coming out of school, right? It was minimal, right? It was like, oh, this is kind of cool. You can kind of, some people were posting jobs, some weren't, but now it's a whole community. It's like,
now if you don't have it, you're not getting a job.
No, man, if you don't have the gold LinkedIn badge and you're not certified,
Yeah.
No, you're not at all. Like, I didn't see recruiters will say, I didn't see your LinkedIn profile,
You're like, what? What are you talking about?
It's crazy. But no, I would say I've been offered roles before that I've, applied to. I didn't know anyone in the space. A recruiter maybe found me and reached out organically. But every role that I have had in my career has been through my network.
Yep.
Every single one.
I said it better. You could not have said it better. I mean, just follow your career track. You organically moved mountains, man. And it's a beautiful thing. And like you said, it's because of networking. That is fantastic. Josh, this has been great. Anything you want to share regarding OrthoFundamentals?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously you can visit our website, orthofundamentals.com, if you want to learn more. If you're a distributor and you're looking to add something in the bag, whether it be, you don't like your current product, or if this is something that would, fit nicely in your portfolio for your physician customers, certainly reach out to us. If it's info@orthofundamentals.com is the email address. But yeah, man, this is awesome. I appreciate it very much.
Absolutely. So we're not done yet. We have one more thing, and it's called the lightning round. Okay. Are you ready, Josh?
I guess so. I didn't know about the lightning round. Let's do it.
So Josh, you have less than 10 seconds to answer 4 questions. Okay. So the first question is, what's the best book you've read in the last 6 months?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Oh, that's so. So I read that like once a year. Same
Yeah.
thing, or this was your first?
Yeah. I've read it before. No. I've read it before, and then because you go back, you're like, how did I forget that? That's a good one.
Love it, man. I love it. All right, best TV show or movie you've seen in the last 6 months?
What's the one with The Big Short?
Oh, that was good.
I know I'm late to the game. I know it's old, but my buddy was like, "You haven't seen that?"
Story is phenomenal.
It's so good. I mean, trust me. If somebody's trying to sell his house right now, it's very interesting.
Yeah. You got to watch the one about GameStop. Oh God, I wish I remember the name.
Oh, GameStop on Netflix. I watched that one.
Oh, you did? Oh man,
Yeah.
That story is something else, right?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh man. Okay, that's fantastic. All right, best. Now we want the item and restaurant. Best meal you've had in the last 6 months.
Capital Grill ribeye. Can't be.
Wow, that was so fast. Say it one more time.
Capital Grill.
Oh,
you gotta get the ribeye. I know it's a chain. I know.
No. There's no knocking it. It is what it is. If that's the best, that's the best. And there it is. All right, Capital Grill and ribeye. Okay, I'll take it. And last but not least, what is the best experience you've had in the last 6 months?
It's gonna sound squishy, but find out my wife's pregnant.
Hell yeah, there's nothing squishy about it, and actually, it's very squishy, and squishy is a wonderful thing. So, congratulations again, Josh. It was fantastic talking to you today. Where can people find you?
So they can find me on LinkedIn, just Josh Reynolds. Again, if you Google that, there's a lot of us out there, I guess. So probably need to put either
OrthoFundamentals.
Probably so. That's probably the easiest way. So.
Fantastic, Josh. We'll keep making things happen and moving mountains out there. And so glad you were able to make it on the show today.
Awesome. Thanks, Sam. Appreciate you having me.
And that was Josh Reynolds. Fantastic stuff. You know, what I loved about that episode is Josh really stepped into anything he was doing and took time to develop the right relationships that literally pulled him into his next role, ultimately to where he is today. It's one thing to want to be somewhere and go after it. It's a whole nother thing to just give it your best, develop relationships, and be pulled into a bigger opportunity, and bigger opportunities. It highlights the value and necessity of networking and, of course, how to network properly. And that doesn't apply to just those that are active medical sales professionals. It applies to those that are listening right now that want to be in medical sales. Your networking game must be fierce, especially with how competitive it is in today's day and age. But what does that actually mean? Well, there's a whole strategy. There's a science to it. You heard us mention LinkedIn and the importance of it. But what do you do with it? How do you design that profile correctly? How do you get in front of the right people using that platform? And how do you turn that into a suite of interviews that you nail and get all these offers from and finally make a decision to become a medical sales rep yourself? Well, these are just some of the things you learn in the Medical Sales Career Builder program. So again, if you've been listening to this episode and you've been thinking to yourself, I want this life. This is where I want to be. I want this kind of experience. Then you already know what I'm going to say. Visit evolveyoursuccess.com, click the application, fill it out, schedule some time with one of our account executives, take our culture index assessment, and let's get you into the position you were designed to be. As always, we do our best to bring you guests that are doing things differently in the medical sales space. So I hope you tune in next week for another episode of the Medical Sales Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. And remember, I have a customized and personalized program that gets you into the medical technology industry as a sales professional, or any type of role for that matter. Become a top performer in your position and masterfully navigate your career to executive level leadership. Check out these programs and learn more at evolveyoursuccess.com by visiting our site, filling out an application, schedule some time with one of our account executives, and allowing us to get you where you need to be. Stay tuned for more awesome content with amazing interviews on the Medical Sales Podcast.